Hitler was just a Chancellor of Germany. He was a soldier in World War I and believed the Jews were the reason Germany lost World War I. His first actions as Chancellor of Germany were to make Luftwaffe squadrons, introduce conscription, strengthen his army, send troops into the demilitarized zone, and claim lost land from World War I. All of these came with no response from the French and British. Next, he took Austria with no resistance, claiming it as Germany, still with no response from the French and British. Seeing how simple that was, he invaded Czechoslovakia. This got the French and British's attention. Now Hitler had his eyes set on Poland. The French and British said if he invaded Poland, that would mean war. Hitler, not fazed by this, made an agreement with the Soviet Union, saying they can both invade Poland and split it in half. Once the invasion started on September 1st, 1939, the French and British declared war on Germany, starting World War II. The German and Soviet alliance shocked the world. Next, the phony war set in, where neither side wanted to attack each other. French and British artillery wanted to fire at Germany in fear of being fired back upon. Bringing the phony war to an end, Germany started invading Belgium on May 10, 1940. To stop the advance, French and British troops moved in on Belgium to stop them, appearing to look like a repeat of World War I. But Hitler had a trick up his sleeve. With all he had, he pushed his forces through the Ardennes forest, encircling and trapping British troops in Belgium, eventually pushing them back onto the beaches of Dunkirk. Luckily, Hitler halted his tank advance in fear of a counterattack, giving the French and British the crucial time they needed to evacuate their troops. Although 68,000 troops were killed, wounded, captured, or missing at Dunkirk, the British people came together to triumphantly rescue the stranded troops. From May 26 to June 4, 1940, over 300,000 British troops were evacuated off the beaches of Dunkirk, escaping Nazi forces that had surrounded them. The Battle of Dunkirk was one of the most important of World War II, keeping Britain in the war as their troops were evacuated and saved. This event was critical in the war effort, as the rescued British troops were redeployed and part of the Allied forces. The Battle of Dunkirk was a mass evacuation of around 300,000 French and British troops. It started on the 26th of May and ended on the 4th of June. The evacuation was slow at start, but it eventually sped up with civilian vessels traveling across the English Channel to save their troops. Around 850 civilian vessels crossed the English Channel to save their troops.
Some vessels had crews of naval forces, while others had a crew of civilians.
Many troops were evacuated off the beaches of Dunkirk in large vessels, but a handful of them were evacuated off the beaches by civilian vessels. On the first day of the evacuations of Dunkirk, codenamed Operation Dynamo, only around 56,000 British troops were evacuated off the beaches of Dunkirk. The following day, only around 15,000 more troops were evacuated. Operation Dynamo was only supposed to evacuate around 30,000 troops.
There were several reasons why many more troops were evacuated. The first reason being that Germany feared a counterattack by the Allies. A main reason Hitler feared a counterattack is because he was too afraid to lose his tanks. The second reason is that Hitler thought that the Luftwaffe could stop the evacuation. But the Royal Air Force fought bravely around the clock, losing many planes and pilots to keep the Luftwaffe from bombing the beaches.
The last reason is that Hitler thought if he let them escape, the British would be more willing to sue for peace. Now there were 3 escape routes that the British used: Route X, Route Z, and Route Y. Route Z was the fastest route, but the most dangerous at 39 miles. Route X was the second fastest route, and had very little danger to it. Route Y was the safest route, but it was the longest at 87 miles. During the 9 days of constant bombing, around 315,000 Allied troops were evacuated, with around 554,000 casualties on both sides. The British also lost around 930 planes, with 475 of those being fighters. In the end, Dunkirk was a great success, as the troops that were saved were either redeployed or reserved. The Battle of Dunkirk was a very important battle in World War II.
There were several major short-term impacts after the Battle of Dunkirk. One of the short-term impacts is the bombing of England, as Europe was now under control by the Nazis. Another being that lots of supplies and equipment was lost. This is bad because it gave Germans free supplies and equipment. Another short-term impact is that the Battle of Dunkirk improved morale of troops and the citizens of Britain. This happened because in their eyes it was a huge victory, motivating them to continue fighting.
The last major short-term impact is that British aircraft were lost, weakening the Royal Air Force's ability to defend Britain from air raids. The Battle of Dunkirk was huge in the British World War II effort. One of the long-term impacts is that it kept Britain in the war, as they might have wanted to sue for peace with Germany. Another long-term impact is that it saved 300,000 troops that were used to take back Europe and Africa. The last long-term impact is that it was one of the first turning points in the war, possibly allowing a British victory of World War II, as it kept Britain in the war, allowing D-Day preparations to happen in Britain. Dunkirk is still viewed as a huge victory today, and it is even called the Miracle of Dunkirk. It is celebrated in Britain to show respect to those civilians who courageously crossed the English Channel to save their troops, and to those who died trying. After Dunkirk, Winston Churchill gave the speech, "We shall fight on the beaches," saying,
"We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender."